Hi everyone, as promised last week, this week's video is about PTSD, and it's a long one, but bear with me. Post-traumatic stress disorder can have various impacts on daily life, and in most cases symptoms start soon after the trauma, but in other cases it takes years to appear. Some of the most common symptoms of PTSD, according to the NHS, are re-experiencing, such as flashbacks, nightmares, repetitive distressing images or sensations, and physical sensations such as pain, sweating, feeling sick, and trembling. Some people have negative thoughts about their experiences and ask themselves why and what they could have done differently to prevent it. This causes feelings of shame, blame, and guilt. People with PTSD also try to avoid triggers such as certain people, places, or avoiding talking about the trauma altogether. They will try to make themselves emotionally numb, leading to isolation and withdrawing from society. And anxiety comes hand in hand with PTSD, and you are constantly on edge and finding it incredibly difficult to relax, leading to irritability, sleeping problems, and difficulty concentrating. Other mental health issues, including depression, are likely to occur. This can lead to substance misuse. Headaches, dizziness, chest pains, and stomach aches are also common among sufferers. PTSD UK argues that despite the right support after childhood abuse, the impact of trauma can manifest in different ways, including symptoms of PTSD appearing many years after the abuse stops. Prolonged abuse can result in what is called CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD UK has a very apt quote on their page. A caregiver who denies a child their basic need to comfort, food, and a safe living environment can create trauma just as damaging as physical blows or sexual abuse. It is very important for people to realise it is not just the physical abuse that creates trauma, but the mental and emotional abuse too. It has been suggested that emotional abuse is more likely to cause CPTSD, and in fact a study in 2021 examining child abuse and neglect found that emotional abuse was associated with more severe PTSD symptoms. It is hard to determine how many children who experience abuse go on to develop CPTSD, as much abuse goes unreported or ignored. However, a study in 1999 suggests a third of victims of sexual abuse, 30% of those who experience physical abuse, and 30% of neglect victims meet the DSM criteria for lifetime PTSD. Don't you think we should be revisiting this? Why is child abuse not important anymore? And couldn't we learn from these studies to help children to report, be listened to, and prevent prolonged abuse? Children can exhibit many symptoms similar to adults. They display risk behaviour, have learning difficulties, emotional numbness, and a range of physical issues. What people need to realise is the shame, blame, and guilt attached to child abuse. I myself tried to rationalise my mother's and further abuses behaviour that came later. I put all the blame on myself, telling myself it must be something I had done wrong, and I needed to work harder to win the approval of my abuser's affection. I must do better in school. I must get them everything they want. I needed to be the perfect daughter or girlfriend. And I needed to give my body away as I had no rights over it, and do things I knew were illegal, and most of all, lie to protect my abusers. All because I was desperate to be loved. When it is a parent that is responsible for abuse, it makes everything harder. How are you supposed to trust anyone when the person who is supposed to love you the most is the one hurting you? And how are you supposed to rationalise that you are being abused and it is not your fault when it's your parent who is constantly telling you that no one will love you, that you are worthless, and everything you have is because of them? How are you supposed to realise you are being raped and not able to say no because your mother has told the boy how to rape you and that you would say no and not mean it? I became numb to my trauma as I couldn't see it as abuse, only my wrongdoing. I buried the abuse, minimised it, and always said that someone else had it worse. Adaptive or protective mechanisms can add to the damage. I self-harmed, developed anxiety and depression, had no self-esteem, and couldn't maintain healthy relationships, instead jumping from man to man to try and find some sense of love and self-worth, which led to further abuse. When I was 14, I started talking to people online to try and find a connection and to feel like someone cared, and before I knew it, I was talking to a 22-year-old man and was going to meet him. This was an incredibly dangerous situation, and it was lucky I backed out last minute. I started using my body to get things so that I knew I was being raped anyway, by so-called boyfriends and people I barely knew. This led to me developing a relationship with an older man who not only raped me, took photos and videos of me, allowed men to come around and watch me, chose what I wore, made me spend all my money on him, and then pimped me out to strangers to see what else he could get from me. Attachment issues associated with abuse include dismissive avoidant attachment, which is being independent and focused on avoiding being rejected. I could cook from the age of 7, as well as keeping the house and raising my baby sister who had additional needs. Fearful avoidant attachment is avoiding closeness and intimacy. This means that people won't have the power to hurt you. Even to this day, I don't enjoy any form of sexual contact, and there are days when I can't bear to be touched, and I flinch when people raise their arms. I don't like being touched by strangers. Anxious, preoccupied attachment is someone who is needy or clingy, needs constant validation, always feeling insecure, and that they are not enough. I experience this almost daily, wanting to be with people, but not at the same time. Always asking repeatedly if I look okay, always feeling like I'm a burden and that I just shouldn't be around. I always go overboard on buying presents and anything monetary, as I feel it's the only contribution I can make, and that is the limit of my worth. It is really hard wanting to be around people and not at the same time, wanting to be loved, but being frightened to be around people because you don't know you can trust them. I suffer with nightmares constantly, from memories to extremely frightening scenarios, and there have been a few times that I've been half awake and my husband's come into the room and I just don't recognise him. I only see him as someone who wants to hurt me, so I start screaming and it takes me a really long time to calm down. This is really hard on my relationship because he cannot understand why I don't know it's him and why I'm so afraid. I also suffer with horrendous flashbacks, and this takes me a really long time to talk about, as I felt I was going crazy and I would be sectioned. But I would see people crawling up the stairs, standing at the end of my bed, leering over me. And when my mother would strangle me, I could feel her hands around my throat, where she threw things at me like a heavy china dog bowl, glasses and other things. I could feel it. She ended up cracking my head open, and when I see these things, it's like I'm not here anymore. I am back to the age when these things happened, and the injuries I sustained followed me into the present. I don't sleep well, if at all, and I'm always hyper aware of any little noise in case someone comes into the room. I'm constantly on edge and never feel safe. This is one of the reasons that Coda sleeps with me. He lies down beside my bed and in front of the door, follows me to the bathroom at night, and helps to make me feel a little bit safer. I also have flashbacks of sexual abuse, which I first experienced as a toddler, but I do not feel it is appropriate to describe these here. Normally I talk about all the people who knew something was going on, such as authorities designed to keep kids safe, or who let me down like my family members, some who contributed and participated in my abuse. But this is a lot more about my personal experiences, so that you know what it's like to live with CPTSD, and that I did not need to suffer through all of this. There is so much more I could tell you about how this affects me every day, but I feel like I would be here forever. If anyone wants to reach out and talk more about this, please do. You can contact me through Facebook, TikTok, or email, and I'm always here for someone who just needs a story to be heard. So please, be the voice and be the change.